He's still out there. No one knows where this guy is. He could be anywhere in the world. Juan Carlos is pure evil. He has harmed so many people. But you and I are gonna put a stop to that today. People, like and share this video everywhere. The whole world has to know who's Juan Carlos. Juan Carlos, you can't hide from the internet, bro.
I'm Juan Carlos. Catch me if you can.
Let's start off with Juan Carlos' story. This guy's from Colombia. He was a very poor kid. He had a very hard life. I give him that. But Juan Carlos, that doesn't give you an excuse to harm other people, man. I had a very hard life, but I always try my best to help others. I feed all the animals. I do good. Juan Carlos, as a kid, decided to change his life no matter what. So one day in Colombia, he would go to the airport, even though he did not have money for a plane ticket. When Juan Carlos got to the airport, he would sneak out to the tarmac and go find a cargo plane heading to Miami, Florida from Cali, Colombia. He would hide in the wheel well and allegedly hold on tight for 3.5 hours until it landed in Miami, Florida from Cali, Colombia. When Juan Carlos would reach Miami, Florida, he allegedly falls out of the wheel well and lays unconscious on the tarmac. When people find him, he doesn't tell them his name is Juan Carlos. He tells them, my name is Guillermo, and I'm 13 years old, and both of my parents died, and I had no other choice but to come to the United States. Everyone is just so touched by Juan Carlos' story, and the media blows up with it. A police officer named Lozano was driving home one day, and he would hear Juan Carlos' story on the radio. He was so touched that he would go and volunteer to be Juan Carlos' temporary guardian until the state figures out what they're going to do with him. And Juan Carlos would go live with him and his family. When Juan Carlos, aka Guillermo, went and lived with Lozano, he became crazy. He loved that life. It was just a simple middle-class life. But to Juan Carlos, it was richness. And he told himself, I'm never gonna stop living like this, no matter what it takes. After a couple weeks, Juan Carlos would start stealing from Lozano, and he would go on missing for a couple of days before he would return home to Lozano. Lozano and his wife told themselves,
the kid is crazy.
Something's wrong with this kid. He ain't right. Lozano and his wife turned out to be correct, because one day the Colombian consulate would call Lozano and tell him, we heard your story. The kid you have there, his name is not Guillermo. His name is Juan Carlos. And he's not 13. He's 17. And he has a criminal record. And both of his parents are still alive. And he probably didn't fall off from the wheel well in that airplane. He was probably just in the cargo. But he said that for a better story. Juan Carlos is immediately detained and deported back to Colombia. But it wasn't over for Juan Carlos. Once he tasted that good life, he could never go back. He did so many scams to get him back in the United States and other countries. Fake IDs, fake names. And every time he would get deported back to Colombia. So he would come up with the perfect con. This would be Juan Carlos's perfect con, and it was. It really was. When Juan Carlos was in another country, he would dress up so sharp, like a rich person, and go inside a 5-star hotel and hang out everywhere in the hotel, made sure the whole hotel noticed him. And he would keep record of people's names and room numbers, and then go to the reception desk and give that name and say, "I forgot the key to my room. Can someone come open the door for me?" They didn't question it because they saw him at the hotel all the time. So they would go open the door for him, and he would go in that person's room and steal everything. But that wasn't the worst part. Once he was in that room, he would call downstairs to the reception desk and tell them, "I can't open the safe. Can someone come open the safe for me?" And because he was in that room already, they didn't question it. They would go and open the safe for him, and he would steal everything and leave. He was out of that joint. Juan Carlos does this over and over and over again in different hotels, and he makes a lot of money by harming people and stealing them. But one day in London, he would get arrested for using a stolen credit card. But Juan Carlos was well prepared for this. He would give police a fake name and walk out of there.
From where did you get that stolen credit card?
He was out of that joint again. Juan Carlos would go on doing the same exact thing over and over and over again. And 1 year later, in London, he would get arrested for the same exact thing, a stolen credit card. And the London police didn't realize they arrested the same person.
What's your name?
He would give him a different name.
My name is Bendover.
And they would give him a small fine. And he was out of that joint again. Juan Carlos would travel the world robbing
Time is money.
hotels. But a few years later, he would return back to London, robbing 4 hotels, making out with $100,000 in cash and other things. Time out. Like and subscribe. God bless you. Do me right. I wouldn't do you guys wrong, and you know it. Let's go back. Time back in. But 2 London detectives, Swindells and Plowin, started to piece everything together and figured it out. It was Juan Carlos committing these crimes. But it was already too late. Juan Carlos was out of that joint again. He left London
Time is
and
money.
was probably in another country doing the same exact thing and harming innocent people. After a couple of years, Juan Carlos would end up in Las Vegas, where he would steal up to $350,000 in cash and other things. And allegedly, one of the rooms he stole was Celine Dion's. The man stole Celine Dion's room. Wow. About a year later, Juan Carlos would return to London and do the same exact things. But a miracle would happen now. One night, Detective Swindell was walking by a supermarket, and he would cross paths with Juan Carlos. He never met him in real life. He only knew him by the mugshots. But he was in shock.
Juan Carlos.
He knew it was 100%
What's your name?
him.
My name is Bendover.
And he would arrest him.
Okay, Bendover, you are under arrest.
Would be sentenced to 3.5 years in prison. 3 months later, Juan Carlos was in prison and he had a dentist appointment. And I don't know what happened or how he did it. He managed to persuade the guards to let him go to the dentist appointment by himself. And once he was out, he would flee to Dublin. And he would steal a credit card. But that was his mistake. Because Dublin would put this Irish detective on the case. Detective McGlynn. Now, Detective McGlynn is a very smart detective. He goes and looks at CCTV from stores that the stolen card was used at, and he realized that the criminal was Juan Carlos, the guy that escaped from London. And he knew he just probably came to Dublin, so he's probably staying at
Somebody
a
got to
cheap
make this money.
hostel to keep a low profile. So for 2 days, McGlynn would search all the hostels in Dublin. And finally, he was right. He would find Juan Carlos. And he had a lot of things with him that he had stolen.
Juan Carlos, you are under
And
arrest.
he would arrest him. This is Juan Carlos's real mugshot. Juan Carlos would be sentenced to 2 years in prison, then extradited to France for the crimes he'd done in France. But while in France, he got out temporarily, and he would vanish. A few years later, he would be arrested by a customs agent in Vermont after entering the United States illegal, and he would be sentenced to 2.5 years in prison. When he got out, he would be arrested again in a hotel in Hong Kong. Then he would be arrested again in France for stealing things from a hotel worth up to $200,000, and he would be sentenced to 15 months in prison, then released. I wonder where you are now, Juan Carlos. Good luck with everything, because we're going live. You're on the internet now, bro. I'm Ahmed Monsieur. Thank you guys for watching today's video. Please comment your opinion on this story. And please, like, share, and subscribe. God bless you. I'm out of this joint.